This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. This show is all about informing and not influencing, but it's also practice for me talking to other people once we're allowed outside again. How are you? In today's show, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris make their first appearance together as running mates to talk about school reopenings and the coronavirus pandemic. Plus, Native Americans could face additional hurdles with mail-in ballots come this November. But first, here's what you need to know right now. You've probably seen the name Marjorie Taylor Greene today. The candidate won the Republican primary for a U.S. House seat in Georgia Tuesday, putting her in a good position to win a place in Congress this fall. But that's not the only reason she's making headlines. Greene is also a public supporter of QAnon, a well-known conspiracy theory group the FBI has labeled a domestic terrorist threat. This morning, the president took to Twitter to congratulate Greene, calling her a real winner.
The radical left and their allies in the media are terrified. They are terrified because I'm going to be their worst nightmare.
Meanwhile, in Minnesota, Ilhan Omar is on her way to re-election after beating out a well-funded challenger. The win means the progressive group, informally known as the Squad, which includes Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is set to remain in Congress and likely hold more sway in lawmaking. We've talked a lot about the race toward a vaccine, but now researchers are looking into another treatment option for COVID-19, testing antibody drugs. Our bodies produce antibodies to counter an infection. The idea is that the drug would deliver antibodies to fight and help treat virus symptoms immediately, or if given early enough, prevent them altogether.
Now you're in a situation in a meatpacking plant or a nursing home where COVID spread is out of control. And if we had something to give to everyone that's not infected and that would prevent infection, and it would do it very quickly, again, it would be another miraculous moment.
Vaccines are seen more as a way to control the virus. A doctor with the USDA says antibody drugs look promising and could be available fairly soon. Studies are currently underway with the results expected in early fall.
When we were talking about this a few months ago, I said that hard times were coming, and today's figures show that hard times are here.
Britain is in its deepest recession ever. New numbers show its economy shrank by a fifth in the last quarter. That is the worst quarterly slump on record since they started keeping track back in 1955. In total, Britain's GDP fell 20.4% in April, May, and June. You can see how that compares to the US and EU during the same period. But the UK's unemployment rate has barely budged. Even as businesses remain closed, the government's program that pays up to 80% of a furloughed worker's salary has given most people a living wage and has prevented widespread long-term job losses. One of the last times Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were seen in public, Harris was endorsing Biden for president. That was right before people were shamed for being seen in each other's space without masks. As of yesterday, the dynamic has shifted, and now it's Biden's turn to talk up his new running mate. Newsy's Alex Miller has more on their first public appearance together as running mates and how Biden's VP pick will affect this year's presidential race.
My fellow Americans, now let me introduce to you, for the first time, your next Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris making their first appearance together Wednesday as running mates.
And Joe, I'm so proud to stand with you. And I do so mindful of all the heroic and ambitious women before me, whose sacrifice, determination, and resilience makes my presence here today even possible.
Biden made an historic pick in Harris, and in times of coronavirus, made that pick on Zoom. Harris, as the daughter of Jamaican and Indian immigrants, is the first Black and South Asian woman to compete on a major party presidential ticket.
You ready to go to work?
The pair showing unity in their first day atop the ticket and hoping to put to rest their rivalry during the Democratic primary.
Do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America?
Congressman Jim Clyburn, a key Biden surrogate, told reporters Wednesday there's no hatchet to bury between the duo. They've known each other for years. Harris was close friends with the former VP's late son, Beau. The Biden campaign is already seeing the success financially of Harris on the ticket. They had their largest grassroots fundraising day ever in the hours after the announcement, raking in nearly $11 million. President Trump and his allies, meanwhile, are attempting to brand the California Democrat as a member of the far left wing of the Democratic Party.
She's also known, from what I understand, as being just about the most liberal person in the U.S. Senate, and I would have thought that Biden would have tried to stay away from that a little bit.
But for many Democrats looking for young, diverse voices in the party, Harris is key to recapturing the White House in November.
This is the jolt of energy that we need on the ticket, and I'm so excited.
Biden and Harris will formally be nominated at the Democratic National Convention beginning August 17th. In Wilmington, Delaware, Alex Miller, Newsy.
I'll be prepping myself during this ad break. When you're back, we'll doom scroll through Twitter's trending topics together.
The idea of social distancing in a prison is ridiculous.
He's one of 150 inmates to be released early due to COVID-19.
I can be a part of this family.
Newsy cuts through.
Sidestepping tweets from Howard University alums and AKAs has been a little difficult today and likely a sign of things to come. But if you were glued to the TV in the 90s, you might be interested in this first item. Here's what's trending. We all know how Will Smith ended up in Bel Air, but just how bad was that one little fight that got his mom scared?
Look at you. The only reason why you're not in jail is because Uncle Phil called in a favor.
That clip looks way heavier than the goofy intro we're familiar with, and it's a part of a 4-minute fan-made trailer that's the inspiration for a new series. Will Smith and Morgan Cooper, the trailer's creator, are working together on a dramatic reimagining of the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Basically, Will Smith caught wind of the trailer and apparently really liked it. The project has been in the works since the trailer dropped in 2019 and has buy-in from the original show's producers and creators. You hear that? That's the sound of a fanless course at Augusta National Golf Club, which is kind of how things will look and sound for the 2020 Masters. The delayed tournament will now be scheduled for November 9th through the 15th, but without spectators on the grounds. The announcement from Augusta makes this the latest of golf's major tournaments to go fanless, as the sports world looks for ways to whet our sports appetites while keeping people safe during the coronavirus pandemic. And finally, Maya Rudolph is trending because it looks like she just got a contract extension for her impression of the now VP running mate Kamala Harris.
I'm as surprised as you are, guys.
Rudolph was declared the unofficial winner of the Veepstakes yesterday, and it's not hard to see why. She became a fan favorite on SNL for her impression of Harris during her run for the Democratic nomination for president.
The fun is back, baby! America's fun aunt. I'm also America's cool aunt. You know what?
I just didn't really anticipate traveling during a pandemic. But if there's anyone that can work it out, I'm sure Lauren has some sort of invisible helicopter that can get me there.
This election will likely see double the number of mail-in ballots than in the previous general election. 75% of the country will be able to vote by mail, but there's one group of people that could still face some hurdles in casting their ballots: Native Americans. Newsy's Meg Hilling explains how some organizers are working to ensure Native Americans aren't disenfranchised come November.
Around the country, lawmakers are scrambling to overcome COVID-19 related hurdles voters could face when trying to cast ballots this November. But while the virus and its accompanying problems are novel, barriers at the polls are nothing new for Native Americans.
We need to stand up and make this change together.
Daleen Redhorse is a field organizer with the Rural Utah Project, a nonprofit that works to empower underrepresented voters through voter registration and education. While filling out registration forms seems simple enough, Redhorse says that is where many Native American voters get derailed.
I think the biggest hurdle right now is their addresses, the physical addresses. You know, like I said, we don't have street names or house numbers.
According to the First Nations Development Institute, roughly 54% of American Indians and Alaska Natives in the U.S. live in rural areas. Addresses are often identified by nearby county roads and landmarks, with residents using P.O. boxes in the nearest town for mail. Without traditional addresses, these voters are often given incorrect voting districts and are unaccounted for during the census. To make matters worse, some states have even pursued voter identification laws that require residential addresses for state IDs, impeding the ability of some voters to register in the past.
So we started noticing a lot of people, a lot of the residents were placed in the wrong district or the wrong precinct. So from there, we started looking at doing plus codes.
Plus codes are addresses based on shortened latitude and longitude coordinates, and it's now become part of their advocacy work. Red Horse and her team often go door to door to set residents up with plus codes. These allow Red Horse to help voters get placed in the correct voting district, register to vote, and inform them how to be counted in the census.
I stopped by an old man's house. He was 84 years old, I think. He's a veteran. He was disabled and all. He was very excited to see that I was there to get him registered. He's like, this is the first time anybody has ever come to my house, told me about the elections, registered me. Now I know when I vote, my vote is placed in that count.
And there's been a push to make sure those votes count, especially among Native American members of Congress.
There's no secret we've had historical disenfranchisement of the Native American vote. And so I think we're all going to be on the front lines making sure that everyone's vote counts.
Representative Deb Haaland, who has a track record of pushing legislation to secure fair access for Native Americans at the polls, says it falls on everyone to care about the voting rights of each other.
Every single American, every single voter in this country should care if other citizens' voting rights are being trampled on.
Until that day, advocates like Red Horse say they will continue to knock on doors to help voters sort out the hurdles that litter their path to Election Day, always leaving them with this message.
This is your world. You want to live in it and you want to preserve it for your kids, grandkids, great-grandkids. Right now is the time for you to make that change, express your opinions through your vote.
For Newsy, I'm Meg Hilling.
Okay, gang, we're at halftime. Let's go to our respective corners and meet back here in just a second.
Miss getting email that isn't junk? You should know about Newsy's daily newsletter. It's breaking news right to your inbox. Get caught up quick with the best Newsy stories every day. Join us at signup.newsy.com. Be informed, not influenced.
There's 3 American girls competing for the top 2 Olympic spots.
I could go into this and come out with nothing.
We're still learning so much about the coronavirus, especially when it comes to how the virus affects children. Earlier in the week, the American Academy of Pediatrics reported that at least 97,000 children tested positive for the virus during the last 2 weeks in July, despite the thinking that children are less susceptible than adults. Now, researchers are working to learn more about how children are getting and transmitting the virus. Newsy's Lindsay Thies tells us more.
Ready? Lean your head back.
Twice a month, inside their Tennessee home, Mendy McNulty swabs the nose of her 7-year-old son, Andrew.
1, 2.
They're among some 2,000 families across 11 U.S. cities in a DIY COVID experiment. Researchers want to study any COVID spread within households, hoping to learn about how school-aged children transmit the coronavirus.
It's uncomfortable.
It's comfortable.
It's not comfortable. Sort of tickles.
But these test participants will never see a researcher in person. Instead, test supplies are mailed to their homes.
These families are remarkable in that they are doing the sampling themselves. So a kit arrives at their doorstep, and all of the supplies are in these kits.
Vanderbilt University professor of medicine, Tina Hartert, is leading this study.
It's important because of opening daycare centers and schools and protecting our children and the individuals who work with our children in the schools. And so understanding and knowing their role in transmission is important for these reasons.
Scientists pick test subjects like the McNultys from previous government research participants. They get text messages asking about symptoms and reminding them to collect samples and then fill out questionnaires. From there, they collect their own nasal swabs for COVID-19 tests to mail in. less often, their own stool or blood samples.
So this actually is just like a little button, and it goes on the side of your arm. You press the button and there's a collection tube here, and you wait. I think it's 2 minutes, and the tube fills, and then it's done.
The study could help determine schools' procedures during the pandemic, but results aren't expected before the end of this year. For Newsy, I'm Lindsay Thies.
It's important to know how children are getting and transmitting the virus, especially considering that schools and childcare centers are reopening in some parts of the country. Just yesterday, a Georgia school district that doesn't require masks closed a high school, and more than 1,000 students and staff are quarantined because of the coronavirus. The high school had at least 14 confirmed cases. But masks and social distancing measures in schools can only go so far. Health experts are also pleading with schools to check ventilation systems because poor air circulation can also put teachers, students, and staff at risk.
Emptiness and darkness have consumed this nation's schools for months. But as fall approaches, it is shedding light on a problem decades in the making.
I'm concerned. I understand why anxiety is high.
Dr. Joseph Allen oversees the Healthy Buildings Program initiative at Harvard University. Months ago, he started sounding the alarm about poor ventilation systems plaguing schools nationwide.
We've chronically underinvested in our school buildings.
Nationally, 90% of schools are underventilated. Not a great thing before the pandemic, but now poor air circulation could help spread COVID. Dr. Allen is pleading with schools to address ventilation before reopening.
So what's happening in a classroom depends on the actions we take or don't take.
To help guide schools, Harvard created a risk reduction strategy report. For schools that can't afford to upgrade their ventilation systems or don't have time, portable air cleaners can help. Dr. Allen says a portable air cleaner with a HEPA filter is key. In a classroom where ventilation is poor, changing the air out 5 times per hour means air in the room can be cleaned every 12 minutes. Even opening windows helps. Last week, Harvard even released an air cleaner calculator. It allows school officials to input the size of classrooms' even ceiling height. Then it recommends the kind of air cleaner that would be safest.
If you have lower ventilation, you should increase the amount of filtration. If you have really good ventilation, you don't need as much filtration.
Movement of air. Yes, it's huge.
Dina Atkinson's engineering firm has been helping school districts assess the quality of their airflow systems. What they've found is alarming. Some schools haven't had air filters upgraded in decades.
Just from walking around some of the older schools, they're not even meeting code right now as far as ventilation requirements go.
And there's plenty of reason for alarm. Take this viral photo from Georgia where students are crammed into a hallway. An outbreak has now been reported there on the first week of school.
If you look at the cases of spread in schools right now, they all share common traits. It's no mask wearing and low to no ventilation.
Keeping the air clean in the nation's schools, now more important than ever. I'm Chris Conti reporting.
As always, you can link with us on Twitter using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. Feedback is always welcome, but I might send you a Venmo request for criticisms. Them's the rules.
I did not think it would be this difficult for me to obtain a medical abortion.
Why can't you pick this pill up in a pharmacy?
It has real risks for the mom.
It's a bureaucracy.
I felt like nobody was going to be able to help me.
U.S. health experts have reiterated that a coronavirus vaccine won't be ready until early 2021. Meanwhile, in Russia, President Vladimir Putin said their vaccine is ready to go right now, which drew a collective from the international medical community. Newsy's Sasha Ingber explains why and what critics are saying about this new announcement.
Health and security experts are questioning the validity of the world's first registered COVID-19 vaccine after Russian President Vladimir Putin announced Tuesday that his country approved use of the treatment.
This is, in essence, the Russians cutting corners, disregarding the normal, standard scientific protocols for determining whether a vaccine is safe and effective and pushing ahead.
The vaccine is called Sputnik V, a nod to the Soviet Union's launch of the first satellite, which sparked an international space race. Critics are pointing out that in the rush, the drug hasn't gone into phase 3 human trials after undergoing small-scale clinical trials with primarily Russian military members just weeks ago. An investor in the vaccine manufacturer, the Moscow-based Kamala National Research Institute of Epidemiology and Microbiology, tried to fan off safety concerns.
Russian scientists really focused on safety, have done some vaccines approved with this mechanism before, and that allowed us to move so quickly with this one.
The race for the vaccine has echoes of the Cold War.
The Russians have a heritage of being able to look at biological agents and be able to work with them and develop from them. How much of that has lasted from the post-Cold War, we're not really sure.
Putin's televised address comes after his popularity has plummeted, and the US, UK, and Canada accused Russia of trying to steal international coronavirus vaccine research, which the Kremlin denies. As the pandemic continues, the concept of vaccine nationalism emerges.
And I think it starts with the whole idea that COVID is a worldwide problem right now. And I think the rush to a vaccine is a geopolitical win for whoever gets it.
The Russians wanted to be the first to register their vaccine and beat out not only the United States, but quite frankly, the Chinese, who have been working very aggressively at vaccines as well.
With skepticism posed by international news outlets before Putin's announcement, the vaccine maker launched a website to, quote, fight the disinformation campaign. But scant research has been made publicly available, and the stakes are high for Putin and his people during the pandemic.
He's been able to cow his own scientific community and his own public health community, and he's turning on the propaganda machine. But you have some very loud voices out there that are credible, which are saying this is just simply unacceptable.
Unfortunately, we haven't data on clinical trials they conducted. I think they were under pressure from the top, really.
The vaccine maker says the phase 3 trial will involve more than 2,000 people in Russia, the Middle East, and Brazil and Mexico, and starts August 12th. It expects mass production to begin in September, going to teachers and health workers on the front lines in weeks.
There's a very high probability that they will be given out coercively, i.e., teachers will be told, you want to hang on to your job, take this vaccine. So this is not likely to be a voluntary process.
Sasha Ingber, Newsy, Washington.
That's it for us, gang. Join us tomorrow for more In the Loop. Same time, same place. But don't go anywhere just yet. More top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.